I'll go.
Go ahead, Chris.
I would just tell her it was the first American sport played by the Native Americans, and it's really kind of like a combination of ice hockey and soccer using a lot of basketball strategies.
Okay, I like that. That's good. Next up, even if
Uh,
you're similar.
I'll go. A game with two teams of 10 that use a stick-like weapon to throw a small white ball into a goal, and the team who does that the most wins.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I probably, if I was your actual grandmother, I'd be like, "There's weapons," but we'll we'll get past that. All right, excellent. Next.
I can go. Fast paced sport that involves a stick with a net to pass and shoot small rubber ball into a team's goal.
Excellent. Give me two more people, please.
I'll
Neutral.
go. 10 players on each team playing on a field trying to score on opposing goals.
Excellent. Your grandmother would understand exactly what you're doing. Fantastic. I like it.
I'll go. One of the very first games ever played, 10 people on a side. They use a stick called a cross and they throw a rubber ball into a net. The object is to try to score as many goals as you can.
Yeah, perfect. So I am, well, I somehow move you over, right? So within the rule book, they define it, right? Is a lot more lengthy than one sentence and not necessarily, it's close to a grandma explanation, but you guys, you hit it out of the park, right? So part of going through rule one and explaining, we have to get our objective. And I think all of you kind of hit that, right? And I kind of picked out everything you said and I just wrote it down on my whiteboard. Two goals, it relates to other sports. There's a net or a cross. We have to pass or shoot. It's one of the oldest sports as well. That kind of goes within all the background, which I think is super helpful as well. I don't know if weapon was in there, right? right? But certainly there's violence within the game, right? Which then dictates how we then officiate, right? But two teams, there needs to be a score. The ball needs to enter the goal. And what's a little bit unique to our sport, there has to be a winner. There are no ties within lacrosse, right? The only time that we have ties is that in the event, we'll kind of get there, if it is weather, if it is the lights are going out, that there are no lights on the field, that is in the best interest of the teams, but we have to have a winner, right? So simple things like that we can pick out of it. We don't have to go overly crazy on, right, the exact way of carrying and throwing and batting, right? Just simplify it down to, we have to have two teams. Chip said it as well. We have to have 10 players. We'll go through who those 10 players are. The ball has to enter the goal. We have to have the most score and we have to have a winner. So super simplified, right? What then we do, this is your big note section. I always tell you when to take notes in any of my talks here. This is your note section too. These are super important. Steve Hinchy always boiled it down this way, and I love this way of thinking. What do our rules do? They have to do one of three things. They either define something, they either restrict something, or they prohibit. So again, they tell you what it is. That's what we're going to do in 1, 2, and 3. They're also going to tell you what you can do, but there's limitations to those, that we can kick a ball into the net, but we can't throw it in with our hand. Things like that. Then we're going to prohibit. We cannot elbow one another in the head. We cannot trip one another. We cannot have 12 players on the field. So all of them fall into those three categories, right? Define, restrict, prohibit. Next exercise, we're going to throw you in, going to get breakout rooms up and running as I half talk here. I think we got, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to put 4 rooms regardless. And so, what do we need to play a game? That's your question. So a game of lacrosse, don't give me hopscotch. I feel like one group last year was like, they talked about basketball, which is not what we're on the call for. All right. Stick with me. What do we need to play a game? Think of everything you can come up with. We'll give you a couple minutes on the call or in breakout room, excuse me, into that. I'll start assigning now. Let us do John, Jack, Kevin. Good. Cool. We're gonna do this. There's one of you. I didn't get Sean. I didn't get you. Give me a second. All right. Everybody should have popped up. We'll give it about 4 or 5 minutes.
I think I might have denied your request.
Come on, man. No, I'm kidding. Here, I'm gonna do. Don't click the first one. I'm gonna move you twice, and it usually works to get you back in. All right, you should be good now.
Room 3.
Yeah, room 3.
Okay.
Rob, you
Thank
want me in? You want me in too?
Yeah, if you can go 2, Al's in 1, and then I'll go to 3, please.
Field, that includes like the net, lines, balls, stuff like that.
Yeah, but what do they have? 7 pylons now.
Yeah.
The box, a properly lined field. 2 officials, unless it's a youth game.
Or
1
3 if you're going.
or 3, yeah.
Yeah.
3 if you're playing in Fairfield County. And then college too is 3.
Yeah.
Guess you don't need them, but fans are probably a good one.
And think about players. Go through players. There's a ton of stuff. So
Well,
what do we need? What do we need to
specifically
construct as a
for-
team, and then what does each player need?
So what they need, helmets, the new shoulder pads, elbow pads, gloves, mouth guard. Goalies need cup, chest protector, helmet, neck protector, gloves. They don't need elbow pads. And then you're asking about the field, what we need on the field.
I think
Was-
right, you did a little bit of field, but then think also what else do we need besides the field itself?
The table and scorekeeper, stat keeper.
Keeper.
hmm,
What's the other big one we're missing that we need? Especially think high school or college. You have to have one.
Like game clock.
Good clock, scorebook, and then a type of personnel, or you need a couple of these.
coach.
We need at least one coach. And then who's the other one at all levels? And then if it's youth, a parent can also play this role. Who's certified? I'll say it that way. What type of sport are we?
Contact.
Trainer.
There you
Oh,
go. Yep.
They need
Super good.
maybe for high school they need a trainer at every game or just on campus,
Every game, there needs to be a trainer at the game.
and that's our responsibility to locate.
It's the team's responsibility. It's the home team. So the same thing is where they need to have a field and goals, right? Part of
Mhm.
that is having somebody who is, and again, high school. Generally, they're always athletic trainers. Same as a youth, they can have a like a certified. I forget the exact terminology within it, but a certified like paraprofessional, right? So if it's a nurse, an EMT, things like that, they can vouch as some kind of medical provider, right? If something goes wrong, they can at least stabilize that player or the official or the coach, right? We can have issues with anybody, but they can stabilize them before, the emergency services get there, is the idea.
Did you say that a coach or official can be one?
No, a parent can be.
Okay.
Right. So I think in youth, like you're not going to hire, right, like an EMT in an ambulance for like a U10 game, right? But if, they're going to find a parent, you usually need to identify this beforehand, but you're going to have a parent who says like, hey, I'm the, certified, nurse for the school year or stuff like that, or the season, excuse me.
But that's not our responsibility to ask if that's on site.
Correct. Yep. It just needs to happen. Right. So we'll generally acknowledge. And again, when you're doing high school games and things like that, you'll have a general idea. At some of the youth games, right, you might ask, to that same point, some of the coaches are as well, right? You want it separated, but if the assistant coach is, I'm first aid certified and CPR certified, great. That's what we're looking for. Something basic, if that makes sense. Just to have somebody there who knows what to do.
Okay.
Anything else we can think of?
Just a question back on that route.
Yeah.
I know growing up playing high school, our coach was, I don't know if he was officially like trained, but he served as our trainer. I don't know if that's allowed down here or what.
Yeah, in the high school, you want somebody certified and usually independent as well, especially with concussions now, right? Is the bigger issue is you don't want the coach saying that player's fine, get them in if they're the leading scorer, right? That's a massive conflict of interest. So you want somebody independent. I think it's in, again, Vernon knows more than I do in a good way. It's in there. It needs to be like an independent person when we get to high school, right? I think on the youth, the availability is tough. It's cost wise, it's not going to occur. And again, you're talking sometimes organization, you're rolling kids out of a car and playing, right? If you're lucky, sometimes. So it's just getting the game on in a safe manner goes a long way. Anything else we need? I feel like you're thinking of something, Sam.
Yeah, I was just thinking if we wanted to go break down the players, like, 3 attackmen, 3 middies, 3 defenders, and a goalie, make sure we have people on the
Yep.
right side of the field.
Yep, we need 10 to start, goalkeeper, right? All the time, to your point, you then need have specializations, right? With long poles, things like that, or attack sticks, which then have different areas. So a little bit of everything. Super good job overall. All right, we'll jump main room here when you're ready. I'm going to look up the exact. That way I'm not totally talking out of my butt here. All right, perfect. So for the sake of not spending an hour saying the same things, we'll kind of go through and I kind of break it into 4 areas of what we need. So give me a couple examples of, in terms of within the space that we're going to play this game, what do we need? What's the first thing we need? I'm using space on purpose so I don't use this word. Where do we play the game?
Field.
Field, right? And then what do we have on the field?
Lines, goals, cones.
Lee, how many?
7.
Bam. Got it. My group's better than all the other groups. Lee said it. I was sitting there counting. I go, you sure? Smash out of the park, right?
I didn't know that. Are the cones just like markers?
Correct. Yeah. Is
Yeah, like sometimes you'll see pylons out there, or like the small cones.
the pylons and the same thing. We'll kind of get through that, right? Depending on the level, right? High school should have pylons. That's what we need, right? But again, if they have scones or cones or some kind of marker whatsoever at a youth level, we're in a happy camp. We're still going to play the game in a youth level. If they don't, as I said, you're going to have, fields that are like sideways and don't have lines. We're going to get the game off, right? If we need to, if it's still within safe conditions. We need benches. What other equipment do we need? We had the laundry list. For time's sake, won't go into it. My group, you can't answer. What people do we need to run the game?
Officials, scorers, timers,
Yep.
coaches.
Who else? Coach, at least one coach. And then
players,
who else we
captains.
need? And when we get into it, Brenner, I'm going to ask you and your expertise where it's located, but we need some kind of certified medical person, right? Within
Right.
that, other things, right, is my other category. So for the sake of it, to kind of go through as well, as we said, field line, benches, a table area is actually something we need. We'll go over the diagram, but the bleachers, again, any kind of safety equipment as well. Generally speaking, at high school, it is not official within the state law as places like Maryland does, but AEDs might be things. You might also have, site administrators tell you where it is. That's great. You're not required to obviously use that, but understanding where it is and things of that, again, they're mostly what the athletic trainers are, just good things to know as people who are involved in the sport, and that things can happen. So we need to be aware of that. I always put in parking and restrooms as us as officials, right? Is let your partners know where you're going to park. We went over that. Knowing where restrooms are, it sounds really silly. But again, if you're running from work and you're scrambling, the last thing you want to do is spend an extra 10 minutes trying to find a restroom facility, right? So if you can identify those, if you get there early, or if you have a partner, is mark them out for one another. As I said, super simple quality of life things. Equipment, I think the only thing we missed was ball. I didn't hear that so far, at least in my group. I totally missed that, right? We need a ball to play. The player equipment, we'll go through those: nets, water, any kind of maintenance things, just in general. Safety equipment, scoring timings. On the people side, we went over them things, right? In terms of playing the game, rules. We need some kind of timing element, right? That safety, as we said. W9s, most schools have moved to digital format. Some old school people and old school schools still want you to carry a W9. So if you make copies, I always have a copy on my phone downloaded so I can email to schools so you can get paid. And as John mentioned last week, a lot is now paid through Arbiter Pay, through Arbiter. So put all your information in. It's safe and secure as well. There's two-factor authentication, all those things. The one quick tip in Arbiter, good little point to write down for anybody who hasn't used it, is do not do the auto debit option. You have to go in each time. They'll charge you a fee for that. If you go in each time and you set up your direct deposit, you simply select all of your money and then you move it over manually in transaction. I think it's like $2 or $5. It adds up pretty quick if you do an auto debit. Every time you get paid, they'll take $2 or $5 out. Not worth it, in my opinion. I just wait. Usually at the end of the month, I go in, one giant pay, and you're good. You could do it sooner than that if you want. And as we said, attitude and expectations, right? Rule knowledge, stuff like that. John, can you just highlight, put you half on the spot? Where it is in the book, or the exact thing in terms of especially high school game and then youth game for medical professionals. I know in the youth game, we're looking for generally any kind of parent or identify. We're not necessarily seeking with the head coach, but we'd like to have it. And then obviously at the high school level, I think we have a full requirement to have an independent athletic person. Right? Something to that regard. Again, we're not certifying coaches, things like that. I always use the example. I'm buying John a little bit of time to look this up too. Think concussions, right? You don't want a coach being the medical person. When that person comes off, you want somebody independent to look at that person if it's a concussion, versus coach saying, you're fine, get back in. That's what we don't want. It's not our job to make that medical. We often give the advice, if you see somebody dazed, we can call a timeout ourselves, which is our signal. It's a official's timeout, right? And then we're saying, coach, take a look. Simple. Coach, 13. You need to take a look. He needs to come off the field. That's it. We don't need to go. You're not medical professionals from what you've told me. I'm not either, right? So we aren't saying, coach, he's absolutely diagnosed with a concussion, he needs to get off the field. Don't make it. Al is kinda, and I still don't believe anything he says. No, I'm kidding. But Al, you can say in this too. You don't ever want to be making assumptions on players, especially out loud, of this person has a concussion or this person is off. We don't comment on injuries. We stand there. We can go over our partner. We can go over the sideline is fine. Remember, again, we live in a society that's recorded a lot of, even if it is something totally different than what's going on, we don't want to be seen making jokes, laughing, smirking if a player is on the ground or coming off. Sometimes it's tough. Like Al and I, and we're like, hey, did you hear what that, asshole said 10 minutes ago? And we're saying, so not the time for it. Wait, right, to have that conversation and things like that. Again, perception is reality within that. John, you good?
Hey, Rob, if I can just chime in real
Yeah.
quick. Guys, it's really, and I'm a paramedic. I'm working actually right now. It's really hard, even for me, to see a guy get blasted, lying on the ground, maybe even looking like he's having a seizure type of thing. We are considered not the medical staff there, okay? We don't want to expose ourselves to any kind of liability. God forbid you try and do something and it goes bad or whatever. Our responsibility is just to make the coaches aware, get the coach on the field to help the kid, and leave it at that. And keeping the teams, they can go to the bench area, but yeah, you don't want to get involved.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
Rob, I'm not aware of anything specific in the rule book that says anything about medical personnel in terms of requirement. You're certifying the coach for the players, and presumably with the high schools, they all have their own policies of how they're going to cover it. You could certainly ask them how that's going to work, but there's nothing under the certification that requires you to certify a particular medical personnel that I know of.
Correct. And then, so the index has got the concussion stuff as well. I thought I had somewhere in there. So same point, we're not asking, it came up in our group. We're not asking specifically, right, is generally identified. Most schools, to that same point, they identify it usually straight out too. A lot of
Yeah,
times.
if a player goes off because of an injury, something like that, there are rules that say they have to be cleared by the medical professional before they can come back on, but that's not your responsibility per se.
Awesome.
Say the coach.
Excellent. Questions on any of this?
Yeah, actually, I do.
Yeah, go ahead. Sean.
For basketball and baseball, both, if there's an injury or a hard hit to the head or an impact that leaves a player stunned, if you will. What we typically are told to do is if we feel that the player is either incapacitated or shouldn't be there, coach, please check your player. Take him off, check your player. Is that the same principle that you guys follow here?
Yep, exactly. And just remember, if we call, right, we're allowed to call timeout for any reason as officials, right? Those are our officials timeout if something's wonky. If we deem it an injury timeout, that player needs to come off the field, technically to the second dead ball, so they can't come right away, right? They have to wait till the next whistle after we resume play. And we see that now with the helmet rule, it's going to be a little bit more prevalent, but same idea, right? For any reason, we deem it injury. If it is, they stub their toe, to we think we're unconscious for a bit, to if we feel they're bleeding or anything in between. If we were calling an injury timeout, right, we were taking that player off, and they have to wait a bit to come back in. And so that next whistle after we've resumed play as well. And the same thing, if they're bleeding on that, as I said, they come off. And again, think of the idea without getting in the weeds here is we want to allow, we do not feel it's a life-threatening injury and we purposely blanket it like that, we're going to allow an immediate scoring play to continue. So a person's ready to shoot and score a goal, we might hold it. I always use hockey as the example. They're the extreme, right, where it's possession, and you've seen the Gregory Campbell, 3-minute shift with a broken leg, that's insane, right? We can hold it a second, allow the play to continue. Once it is no longer an immediate scoring scenario, we blow the whistle, we get the player some attention, whatever it is, if that makes sense. We think it's life-threatening, right? If player gets hit in the chest or absolutely rocked, so within your right, blow the whistle, get the attention as quick as you can. Make sense to that point?
So in other words, if kid's on a fast break and the defenseman pulls up with a hammy, you let it go and let the fast break. But if the kid collapses, then you blow the whistle.
Correct.
And like other sports, we don't use the word concussion when we ask the coach to look at a kid. We just say, could take a look at this kid.
Yep. To Sean's point, which is perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. All good on all that stuff? Question wise? All right, so to go a little bit quick, if you need me to slow down on anything, but again, this is a lot. It's all in the rule book. I'll use the Dave DiMartino line of the best thing you could do is read the book, right? It's really good advice. Again, the game has got 10 players. We break them up with different positions. We just need 9 field players and we need a goalie. We always have to have a goalie on the field no matter what. We don't care where the goalie is. That sounds weird. They're generally in the crease, but they can be anywhere in the field as long as they're on the field. Very few times they will not be in the crease, especially at lower levels. You might see in upper levels to get the ball back with a minute left, the goalie moves to different parts. We need a goal. It's 6x6. The goal explains obtuse versus triangle. Don't overly confuse. Just 6x6 goal. They're generally all correct. I have yet to see something not 6x6 in all my years and seeing bad nets. We default to a white ball. If the coaches agree, we may use a different color. I've used it very few times in my career is in severe weather conditions like ice and snow or snow banks, even if it's not snowing, things like that. The ball has to be NOXI certified. NOXI is a certification. A lot of the equipment is NOXI. The helmets, the shoulder pads, the ball has to have a NOXI stamp. This was a big thing a few years ago where we were chasing every ball to have a stamp and things like that. At this point, almost every ball has one. You can take a quick look. We always say take a look at the beginning of the game, make sure it's NOXI. If for some reason you notice the ball does not have a NOXI stamp and you're about to start play, throw it out, get a new one. Don't go overly chasing for that ball stamp. Make sense on that one? Field-wise, without going, again, overly nuts, we're broken into two halves, right? That area around the goal, we call it the attack area. If might call it defensive area. If you're on a different team, we have end lines and sidelines, and then we have wing and alley lines as well. Most of what we talk about, and when we get to the other ones, there's a couple of restrictions where people can go, mainly throughout the face-off, and then once, similar to basketball, once we get over in a high school game, we get over the midline, we'll have a timing count, and then we have to get a touch within this offensive area, which is named defensive on this slide, and then we're restricted to stay within our half or the backcourt. So for basketball guys, we have a backcourt once we get it. We'll get through those a little bit higher, and then the same thing, we have a coaching area, a table area as well. We now have within high school, this was new as of last year.
Rob, are you looking to share your screen?
Yeah, am I not sharing stuff? That would be
No.
totally helpful.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but
No, you should have probably told me that earlier because I
Yeah,
would
there
have
you
showed
go.
you all this stuff as well. Like all these fun things. I can't remember if I shared or did not share on that one.
nope.
So these are all our different areas as well. My apologies. My Zoom game is off, right? But our 6x6 goal, our ball, 4 different colors as options. White's our default, right? Our 9 field players, our goalie, and then our field diagram, as we said. So just again to go over our half, right? So once we get the ball over half, we have a timing. You need to get a touch within that area. Now we play in the half. Same thing for face-offs without overly confusing. The face-off until it has concluded, we're within this face-off area, or what is commonly called the midfield. Any of the coaching areas as well. Within it, we had mixed results this year, but it is similar to the college box where we have a 10 total yard, 5 yards on each side. Players can freely substitute in and out. It's technically called special substitution. Drives me nuts that it's called that, but it's really the regular substitution. And then we have this loading area, which is what, or loading zone, which we want just for coaches. No players unless they're immediately about to sub. So again, it clears out the box a little bit like that. Again, within a lot of your games and when you're starting, I promise you're going to be dealing with a lot of the things like, is it a goal? Is it a slash? Where is the ball? Where do I need to go? Do I need to blow my whistle? All this minutia will escape you very quickly. So don't get overly caught up on these. We'll continue to go over these within the time. We're allowed to use a unified field. Very few fields have this. Some youth on grass fields have this. Just know that is an option, that it is essentially the girls' game and the boys' game we can play on one field with all the same markings, essentially. In terms of all of the larger stuff, and then the goal areas are different between the boys and the girls' game, but the field is larger. The standard field fits within a football field. Is generally lined out. We play on a lot of turf now. We're fortunate within the Northeast. Almost all of our games are on turf. There's a few grass ones, but again, lined out for football, soccer, lacrosse, maybe field hockey is the other one we see.
One point to add here,
Yep, go ahead.
Rob, just about the safety of the field. don't compromise on that. I remember going to a JV game and there was a big hole on the near the sideline, and they had like a cone sitting in there. And I said to him, and this was next, it was grass field next to a varsity grass field in which the varsity wasn't playing. And I said to the coach, you know, can we go to another field? And he was kind of reluctant to do that. And I said, look, if a kid gets hurt, the first question they're going to ask you is, was there another field that you could have played on? And the answer is yes, the one right next to this one. And so they moved over to the varsity field. We didn't have a problem. But just keep the safety piece in mind and don't be talked out of something that you're convinced is not safe.
Excellent point. Same thing then on sticks, right? We have a cross construction. We have the field player sticks are different than the goalkeepers within our, again, there's exact specifications, 40 to 42 inches. And that's why we carry tape as officials within the cross. Within this point, again, to not overload your brains, there are exact specifications on what the actual cross is. We will continue to kind of go over those. There are long poles also allowed as well. And then we have things like ball stops and butt ends, which also go into the stick. Butt ends are required. Ball stops are optional, believe it or not. So again, these are things when we get into the stick checks, we'll go through these and we'll have a clinic slide as well. Again, just introducing you to that there are a lot of regulations within the stick. There are even more regulations within the stringing of that stick. But for tonight, we're just going to go again, kind of go over basics. Same thing on players' equipment. Goalies differ slightly, but we're looking, and for those who have played this, a lot of this makes sense, but cleats designed for lacrosse, there is a cup, there is gloves, elbow pads, shoulder pads, which includes chest protector as well. That's under a NOXI certification. A mouth guard is required, and there's a lot of specific talk on the mouth guard. Again, mouth guards are more designed or almost entirely designed to prevent concussions more than they're to actually protect your teeth. And so again, that's why we're still looking to get them in, especially at the youth, especially at the JV level. Remind the players. We don't have to immediately go to penalties to do that, right? We have penalties at our disposal to get these players to do what we're asking them, but you can remind them. It goes a long way. To just say, especially being in the game or at halftime, right, when the third quarter starting, everybody put your mouthpiece in, and you'll see everybody magically pull it out of a pocket, a glove, or the top of their helmet and insert it in their mouth. That's all we want. We don't need to put 20 kids in the penalty box. We need them to be safe. Helmets within there. Goalies do not need elbows, but they have a specified chest protector, and then they have a specified stick. The gloves, they do not have to be goalie specific. The thumb is different, is the real different. There's extra padding on the thumb for the goalies, but we are not checking on that side. As I said, the changes, our cups are now required, and then there's NOXI certifications on that to protect against comiocortis, which is the sudden cardiac arrest from a high impact, a lacrosse ball to the chest, is that idea. So we're not checking for those. That's within the coach's certification. When we ask, again, we're going to ask the head coaches. Uniforms, I spent 7 seconds on this. Other people before me have spent a lot longer. There is the exact size of the numbers, what's needed. We need the high school needs a light color or white jersey. We need a color jersey opposite on that. Again, if you're doing a JV game and somebody has a penny or we have multiple numbers, I'm letting them play. The goal is to get everybody to play. It is not to hang up on you. I'm sorry, your manufacturer made your numbers 4 1/4 inches versus 4 1/2. Don't worry about it, right? Within that, they need that equipment. There's some additional prohibitions. They cannot have tinted visors. We can have glasses. We can technically have sunglasses or medical. For tonight, don't get in the weeds on what we're saying. Same thing, home wears white. There's technically no 00. That's something you didn't need. I probably just overloaded your brain by telling you that. Prohibitions, think nothing for other sports. No football helmets, no football pads, no hockey pads, no auditory devices within the helmets. They can have medical devices or religious apparel. I've never seen any issues with any of those, but just things to kind of have on your radar. Questions on anything? I know I went super quick. I'm going to go through these ones quick as well. This is the boring parts. I know. Go ahead.
You're allowed to wear jewelry if it's outside your jersey, or
If
I
it is
thought-
religious or if it is medical. I've never tried to make a determination on either one of them.
Has to be taped
Yeah, it should be taped.
underneath the jersey
taped underneath. Okay.
for the
All right.
religious. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
to
you.
that same point of the same thing, and I'm going to say it later, is we call it fishing for whales, not minnows, right? If you think it's a legitimate safety thing, you want to, I always will tell the coach, right, before I'll tell the player directly. I've seen other people do it. They walk up to a player and they're questioning. Just tell coach, hey, person's got a really long chain, might propose an issue, right? Spiky earring, things like that. Of hey, coach, you know, is your player aware of that? Might want, or you're aware of your player, might want to take a look at it. Super simple things. To that point, game officials, we talked about it in our group. We have a minimum of 2. The books actually recommend 3 all the way around. We have a head person, essentially a crew chief. They're called the referee, and then we have other people underneath. For administration, the referee handles all that administration, and the final disputes, the coaching certifications will generally be the veteran person. Once the game starts, everybody's equal. Similar to a lot of people have said same in football, where the crew chief is in charge of a lot of the administration. Basketball, once the tip-off goes, we're all the same, right? We make the same calls, we all have the same power, but you just have that veteran person with you. Like we said, generally speaking, everybody gets a fair share. Everyone's going to talk to coaches. You have some older, crusty guys who are like, I'm the only one who talks. It's based on your comfortability as well. You might give longer or more thorough explanations if you're that R, because we don't want a ton of back and forth between the coaches. We want them to ask a question. We want to give them an answer. We want to keep it moving. We're not going to take a 10-minute break to go over something that they think we did a bad job on, if that makes sense. Timekeeper, we need one. We also need a horn. Most use a horn off of the scoreboard. That's a good question to ask the timekeeper. If the timekeeper does not have a horn off the scoreboard, they need a air horn device that goes off. That is for the end of the period. It is also, there's a few scenarios where they might need to get our attention. And in those scenarios, they need some kind of horn. Most schools have them. Most will, again, use the scoreboard, ask them to test it. Also, some have very low horns, right? So you might not be familiar with that. Guilford is one of those. It's a very, very low sounding horn. And so that's what they use. So we ask them to test it sometimes so we can hear what it sounds like. So in the middle of a game, if something's going sideways, we hear that and we're trained on knowing what it is.
And you want to know if the horn is an automatic horn that's going to go off at 0.
Correct. Same thing on the scorekeeper. We'll ask. They need a book. A book is within the rule book. They need some kind of scoring device. In varsity games, they'll use the scoreboard to have a book. In JV games, they usually use something that looks like this. They shut off all the electricity to everything for the game, right? If they have anything that resembles a book, including a piece of paper, we're happy campers, right? Don't overly go nuts. Again, think about if it is 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, the varsity just played a game, they're already yelling at the JV to get on the bus before their game started. We're happy to get the game off for those kids to participate, right? We're not compromising safety within that reason. We don't need a full roster spelled out. We don't need all that stuff, right? So again, varsity games are different. JV, we want safety things, as John said, things like field conditions to take paramount versus, a full certified book.
We do want them to put the score in the scorebook, and we want them to put the penalties in the scorebook as well, particularly personal fouls.
Correct. And penalty time helps. That's usually the most arguments. It's score goes. We are required by rule to take score. I'm very honest within varsities. I generally don't take it. In JVs, I will always take it because there's a lot of times where the same thing. It's the game that you don't take score that is 5-5 with some kind of question goal because they haven't scored in 48 minutes of the game, right? And they go, I think it's 5-5. And the other coach goes, no, it's 5-4. And now we have an issue. Right. So it's just having that double check, or simply if we don't write it within JVs, you need to tell your partner every time there's a goal scored. Hey, we're 1-0 white. We're 2-0 white. We're 2-1 white. Every single time, a simple communication within that. Same thing on the players wise. We have one goalie, as we said. Generally speaking, we have 3 defensemen, 3 midfielders, 3 attack. We have specialist positions, a face-off person or a FOGO, face-off, get-off. We have a long stick midfielder. Again, we're allowed 4 long sticks on the field maximum at any time. And then we have defensive midfielders as well. On the coaching side, we have a head coach and we only have 1 head coach. That's it. Even if they're a program coach or the varsity coach, once that JV game starts, we will find the head coach. They say, I am the head coach. That is the only head coach for that game. I know I just said the same phrase 6 times, right? I've had that scenario last year. Had a severe issue with a coach who felt like they knew more than we did, decided to come on the field, grab a stick that we had already deemed illegal from the game and wave it at us and said, you did a bad job. And I asked who that person was. And he said, you know who I am? I'm the varsity coach. And I go, great, we're playing the junior varsity game and you're not certified as a coach right now. And he looks at me and I go, so right now you're a random person on the field and that's not in the rule book. And they turned around, they slowly walked off the field, right? Don't give into it. Right? There's 1 head coach. They're in charge. We don't give in. We'll give some deference, right? If the varsity coach is helping out the JV and they're wonderful and they're nice and they have a question. Same thing with assistant coaches. If they ask you a question politely and it is an opportunity for them to learn, gain a friend, right? When push comes to shove, you need coaches, right? The players aren't doing things that you're asking for. You can lean on assistant coach. If a head coach is going nuts, sometimes the assistant coach can talk reason into them. Right. And sometimes you can get them an answer. You can do simple things like that to help mitigate and do a lot of game management.
But understand if
Yep,
the
go ahead.
assistant coaches are giving you a hard time, the rule book says that only the head coach is allowed to talk to you. So you have that in your back pocket if you need it. That's not to say don't talk to assistant coaches ever. It's just to say if you need to get them to be quiet, you can
We
use
can cut
that.
them off if we need to. Same thing. There's this super unique thing in lacrosse. It's called the in-home. I just had a whole discussion about basketball, about starting 5. It's not like that. They simply come out with 10. We identify an in-home. An in-home is to serve any team or coach penalties that are assessed, or if we can't find a number, that person is a starting attackman. They're also supposed to be listed first within that scorebook in that official book. And so that is usually identified as attackman. So usually it is the first person in line as an attack. In this picture, number 9 is your attackman for black. They're listed. We ask the coach that. We do a unique thing. We'll go over more in depth. We do a pregame lineup. We line everybody up. The head referee talks. He introduces the officials. He talks to everybody within it. It's supposed to be very brief. I always give my very quick. Poor Al and John have heard this a million times. Gentlemen, it's an amazing day for a game. Even if it's pouring rain or sideways, we're allowed to play lacrosse today, and it's great. That's John. I'm Rob. If it's high school, I might say, our last names is something I generally will go first names. All we need to do is honor the game and play the last whistle. Sound good? Keepers go first. They will touch gloves. They will run down this tunnel that's created between them. They will run to their goals, and then all the remaining 9 players will cross. We will say players cross and wish good luck to your opponents or greet your opponents. They usually, generally speaking, the defensemen give fist bumps to the other defensemen, the midfielders to the midfielders and attackmen, and then, attackmen and defensemen, excuse me. Then they go off in their own separate directions to their fields. We then go to face off, things like that. We'll go in more in depth. It's unique. Same thing with captains. Captains just serve a role for calling the coin toss. We talk to them. We can utilize them. I always tell captains, again, we'll do all the pregame stuff again and again, but I always tell the captains they're part of our team. So if you come calmly and you come in a dead ball, you can talk to me all day, every day about whatever you like. If I get heated and push you away and you feel you've come to me calmly, remind me of that. I even had it in a college game one time. Simple scenario of goal was scored is the attackman had been talking a lot of smack to different people, gets in my face. Sir, I have a question when you get a chance. And I said, get away from me. And he goes, sir, that was pretty calm. You know what? You're right. Like, you're totally right. Like, you've just been talking smack. So I assume that's what you're doing, right? So we can take that second, we can defuse. A lot of times they help us manage the game just like assistant coaches, right? To that point, we'll get in to all our coin toss and other things as we need as we go through. I don't spend a lot of time. You're allowed to have ball retrievers. They can't be behind the goals and the end lines directly. They had to be full equipment, things like that. So what we're going to do a breakout session for a good 5 or 6 minutes. I know we're getting close on time, but we're pretty close to the end here. write these down. I'll throw these in the chat as soon as you get in as well. Go through these. What do you do as an official? Take me through your actions. You see this in a game, these 6 scenarios, come up with a solution for me. Sound good on that? I'll throw them in the chat as well. But I will reopen these breakout rooms. And then I'm going to do, don't cheat, don't cheat, don't cheat. That's on me for putting that. We'll put this here and I'll broadcast. You guys can join your rooms. All right, we're going to go sing happy birthday real quick. I'll be back. Did you guys survive in your own in room 3?
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. We ran out. We just sang happy birthday for my kid for like the 9th time today. So Matt, did you play as well?
Yeah,
And where did you play?
I played at Clarkson.
Okay. We got everybody is back. I think so. Cool. All right. All right. So what did we get? What did we get for 1?
Depended on where it took place, right? In the crease, automatic whistle. Outside the crease, you treat him like a field player. He should drop it and go get another one.
So your answer wasn't panic immediately? Goalie
No.
breaks a stick, panic? No, right? Think about it, right? Take a second, take a deep breath, think about it. If it's in the crease, why do we blow it if the goalie's in the crease?
Safety.
What's a safety issue, right? You got a piece of rubber flying at 50 to 90 miles per hour at somebody who's going to try to catch it. Not good, right? So we want to blow it. Why do we want to wait if they break it within the field?
Because he's not in immediate danger of facing a shot.
Correct. We have no safety, right? And so this was a rule that was implemented last year that changed a bit, right? Is the rules committee thought that if a goalie somehow became unequipped, right, or magically, is that some people were trying to gain that advantage, right? You get caught out, you make a bad pass, you're stranded from your goal, right? Think the same thing in hockey, and then magically your glove flies off. Sir, I'm not equipped. You need to blow a whistle, right? There's a massive sportsmanship disadvantage, right? So we're always trying to not condone the smart, sometimes the heady veteran play, right, is not really sportsmanlike, if that makes sense. So purposely becoming unequipped, and we just took it out where the official did not have to interpret intention. So that's our big one. Awesome.
Hey,
Somebody
Ron,
else do.
Let me
Yep,
just
go ahead.
jump in
Go
on
ahead,
this one for 1 second. When
Yeah.
you get your 2024 rule book, you're going to find that there are a number of errors in the book that were not corrected. One of them is related to this particular play. We are telling you the right call on this. There is one section in the book that they're going to probably at the rules interpretation meeting, they'll tell you to write over or, correct it. What we're describing is accurate. There's one little section that seems a little bit confusing about this, and it's because there's a misprint. So just to let you know, that's up.
Go ahead, Al.
on our breakout session, one of the guys asked, what happens if the goalie makes a save, kind of goes behind the net, gets checked, and the stick breaks then? And that's when you do kill it, because he's at his own goal. What these guys were describing is if he takes off and he's like in midfield and somebody checks and breaks his stick, well, he's got time to get a new stick type of thing or continue on. It's not like that imminent threat of getting scored on or getting shot at. You just don't want the kid not protected. That's all.
Awesome point. And think of too, in our own brains, we can always make a call a little bit late, right? You always have an extra second. So if you felt, right, goalie was in a serious scenario, the ball then squared away out, and you said, that looked weird, right? And you take an extra second to process, and then you blow your whistle, you're good. What we can't undo, right, is, and I've seen it especially with newer guys, and I've seen it with older guys too, right? But that scenario, we should hold that whistle, we blow it, and then the ball gets thrown into the net. We can't put that goal on the board. So we can wait. We can always wave the goal out, right? And no, this is what I had, and this is what we're going with, right? But I can't go, oh, that should have been a goal. I can never award a goal if I sound the whistle early. So always think about that in the back of your head. It's better within lacrosse. Wait the extra half second or full second to blow that whistle until you're 100% sure. We had same scenario this weekend in a game. The very quick story was ball went up and the person starts to run down with the field with it, and I'm calling something based on that, and then the ball literally ended up completely behind the net. The player never scooped it. They just missed it, but they thought they had, and they literally were running down the field in a college game thinking they had the ball, right? And then it was the scenario of we have possession versus no possession, other things, right? But take that extra half second, because weird things like that happen all the time, right?
The other thing I'm just going to add, this differs from sports, say like basketball, where you're making calls very, very quickly on the whistle, right? You're not waiting very long. In lacrosse, you do, in many situations, have time to just slow things down and take your time with it.
And for soccer, I can't remember anybody with soccer. It's also the opposite of soccer. To really now really confuse you, right? It's not as quick as basketball and it's not as long as soccer. A lot of the soccer officials have said they've waited like 4 years to blow a whistle, right? Because it's a play on, it's a play on, it's a play on, it's an advantage. We're in between that. We take an extra second, but we're not going to let things carry on for 10 seconds, if that makes sense within that. So it's a very middle grounded officiating. Two, we talked about for time's sake, we already went over, right? Player stays down. Do we have an imminent scoring threat? Do we feel that the player is seriously hurt, right? We're not saying that aloud, but in our brains, did that player just collapse, right? Or did the player get hit and is taking an extra second to get up? Can we wait the extra second to see if that ball is going to go in the net? As soon as we think it's not going in the net, off of that immediate play, blow our whistle, right? The little bit of time.
I like to Rob and John. I talk to the guys in the breakout group here. Let's say an attackman gets blasted, right? Gets blasted. Defenseman picks up the ball. He stays down on the ground. I told the guys in the breakout group that I've done this before in college and in high school, that once that ball crosses midfield, I can look at the coach and say, go look at your player type of thing and let the play continue. Is that allowable? Because we're allowing the coach on the field to go through, because
yeah, I wouldn't have him come out. I think my best rule of thumb is as soon as that ball is no longer heading directly towards that goal, as soon as they veer off to the side, that's when we blow our whistle. And you're right. I did it in high school as the same example. And same thing, attackman gets hit, defensive picks the ball, defenseman starts running, is making a beeline to the net. I might put my hand up, say, I have it, right? Everybody in the stadium, I know what just happened. I am waiting the call. Something is pending. My arm is straight up, right? And then that defenseman decides to make a left turn completely away from the goal and pulls up. I kill the play. Well, I was on a fast break. You're not going directly to goal, right? Is a good rule of thumb. Is you're not immediately going to score. I need to get that player some help, in my judgment, to your point. Make sense on that one? 3. Who wants to take? Coach runs on the field. What do we do? Do we tell him to keep running? Just keep running, go right to the car, just keep it out.
I mean, just tell them to get back.
Yeah, first thing, diffuse that scenario, right? Just get them back first, right? Before we go off the deep end, right? And lose our mind. Just get the coach back, right? Get the coach back first. Again, think it's a safety issue, right? Somebody standing on the field who's not playing the game, who's not equipped, right? And again, at any level, that this sport can turn on a dime, come right back, and again, even more, not even just the coaches who can get hurt, the players can get hurt, right? Or immediately run down and clip somebody. We can get hurt as officials as well, right? And so it's important to move them back first, then address it. And again, I didn't put anything else. We're not looking to dig deeper on it, right? But just get them back. Correct answer. Scoreboard goes out or there's lightning. What do we do? Either scenario, this is a twofold.
Kill it.
Kill the game.
Yeah, 100% kill it. In lightning, what do we add to this?
30
If we
minutes.
see like, go ahead, sorry.
Was it 30 minutes between strikes?
And yeah, before we even get that, where do we want everybody going?
Everyone clears the field, including the fans.
And 9 times out of 10, I've had fortunately very few lightning games, right? We had one, Al was there too at one of the state semifinals, right? It was down to the wire, right? But you will generally have a trainer with a radar app. Again, it's an independent person. It's not the coaches and not even the site administrator. There's usually an independent person who's in charge of that lightning because they get to make the call, not us as officials, right? The head referee will work with them closely too. There's also, like I said, 9 out of 10 times, we generally know, especially in this area, lightning doesn't come completely out of nowhere. It's not like when I was in the Midwest and you'd have a tornado in 5 minutes, right? And I'm not kidding about that. You generally will know, so there's a designated place, you're a place of shelter that we're going to, right? It's not in the bleachers. It might be on the bus. It might be in one of the locker rooms, whatever it is. We have an idea. Immediately we're blowing it. We're getting everybody in. Then we're going to our 30 minutes, right? On our clock. generally speaking, again, the athletic trainer will hold that, or that person who's in charge of that lightning app. They hold the 30, not us. Sound good?
Really?
Wingman has a mouthpiece. I chose these words on purpose and these people on purpose. The wingman before the face-off, he's got his mouthpiece sticking out of his helmet. What do we do?
Give him a chance to put it back, put it in his mouth.
Chris, man, you should have thrown the book at him. Is the correct answer. That kid should be expelled from that game. That's it. Last chance. You broke the no, perfect, right? It's safety. It's about use. Again, this is a common sense question, right? Within this one of just give him a chance, put it back in, right? We want it there. Same thing. Player with the ball has the buckle undone. The helmet hasn't come off, but we notice, right before, if it's a man up, or we notice even during the course of the play that buckle on that helmet comes off. What should we do?
Give them a chance to buckle it up, unless it's yeah.
Right? Again, what can we do at all times? What kind of timeout can we call?
Safety.
An official's timeout. Hey, my time, right? Again, maybe if it's fourth quarter, minute left, right? The ball has been in that zone, right? And everybody's going after him. Don't bail that player out. But especially at a lower level, if it's JV, if it's in the first quarter, right? Get the player safe. Wait so they're outside the goal area, right? Especially if they can be outside the attack area, is a good time. The ball goes behind or to the side, or they're subbing. Blow a quick whistle. Hey, 14, right buckle. Don't do it for them. That's the other kind of caveat to that too. When they're super young, people are kind of like that. And some of them at this point don't even touch the players, as Al said. There's a liability on that, believe it or not. Just tell them to do it. If they can't do it, go get a sub. And I've had them do that too, even in high school. Oh, these gloves are new, I can't do it. Then you need to go get a sub. Well, magically, their glove comes off, their buckle gets on, right? Have them do it. I'll wait 3 minutes for you to buckle it. I don't care. I'm not buckling it though. And most players at this point know, if you just say, I'm not allowed to buckle you. I'm super honest. I'd love to, but I can't. And they'll figure it out very quickly.
In general, if the player with the ball has something wrong with equipment, kill it immediately. They keep the ball. I mean, unless it's repeated kind of thing with the mouth guarding, you're going to give them a technical foul for it. But in general, if they have possession, they're missing a glove, they're missing a shoe, whatever it may be, you kill it, and they're going to keep the ball.
Hey, Rob, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
Hey, guys. Hey, especially with the last two, the mouthpiece thing and the buckle up, especially the games that you guys are going to start be doing, right? There's going to be 2-man games. We're going to be like 50, 60 yards apart from each other. I don't know what you see in some of the things, the communications with players that you have. That's why when we come together at timeouts and stuff, we talk about it. Hey, look, I told number 14 5 times to put his mouthpiece in. So that when you do take the ball away from him, I can look right at the coach and say, hey, he was warned 5 times. I mean, he's just not getting the message. So that's where the communication with your team is really good. Hey guys, I'm running on a.
You're good. Al's got an excellent point. We had the same scenario this weekend. Again, it was a college scrimmage. All 3 of us heard a particular attackman on one of the teams come in after goal and MF everybody on the other team. Right? Very low, very kind of like, hey, not probably to the extent of MF and them, right? But come in. So then at one of the quarters, you said, hey, I'm watching that number 4. And the next person goes, I'm also watching the number 4. And the third guy goes, I'm also watching 4. And we go, uh-oh. Right? Of next time he does it, and we did it, the same thing came in, right? And we took a preventative measure. Again, we were in a scrimmage. Our R went over to the coach and we said, hey, number 4. Coach said, yeah, I'll get it. We said, no, go over right now and tell him he's literally going to be in the box if he even breathes on another player. Sure enough, coach goes over, something is said. Maybe even they're making fun of us. We don't care. Next goal, same player comes over, silent. Excellent. We prevented all the issues, right? For now, we'll live to, get into another mess in 5 minutes from now, but we just got past that, right? So it's sometimes super simple things like that. To go through the kind of the last things for the night, again, on the timing side of things in our last rule here, when you're in a varsity game, there are 4 12-minute stop times. We do not change that at all. That is what the game is. In JVs, we have some variation. Again, there are other factors outside of our control. It is getting dark. It is, they have a bus to catch. They have different things. Sometimes they're before game, sometimes they're after the game. The JV generally doesn't get the full extent of everything because they're an afterthought. A lot of times youth games get a lot more amenities than the poor JV kids. And so again, we can go lower. We're never going to extend the game. We're never going to do 15 minutes and we're never going to do things like that. We can do in the JV, we can do usually 10 stop or 12 run. They might ask you to do the timing as well, as we said. For various reasons, they don't have a scoreboard. Bring some kind of timing device, a wristwatch to your JV games. Varsity, we won't have that, but we'll have that in youth games as well. It is fine for you as officials to keep that score. It is terribly difficult to keep stop time as an official because you have other things going on. So generally try to convince if you can, right? Usually how I do it when I ask, Coach, what are we doing for timing? 12 runs sound good? And just give them the option right there. And then they're generally going to say, yes, you confirm the other coach. You'll see your R's get together, especially we do JV or youth games. We will get coaches together at the same time so we can decide things like that. 2-minute breaks in between the quarters. We have a timing device that can help us with that as well. And then 10-minute halftime. They can go less than 10 minutes if both coaches agree. If one coach says, I want 4, and the other coach says 10, we get 10 because we have not agreed. 10 is our default. Both coaches have to agree to change that. Only lower, we don't extend. Make sense?
Most sub-varsity games are 10-minute quarters, just so you have a framework.
Yep. 10 stop. Less, never more, right? We're going to do super quick. Last activity for the night. We're going to do our out of bounds. So if you have a whistle, I got mine. I won't blow mine into your microphones and your speakers, right? What we're going to do, so shake it out if you're sitting on the couch at this point, right? Out of bounds. We're going to practice right now. We're going to do it next week as well. We're going to put our hand up nice and straight in the air, right? And when our whistle goes to our mouth. So if you don't have one, just put your hand to your mouth and we go tweet. That's our Zoom whistle. Tweet, tweet, tweet. They're out of bounds. We go tweet, right? So that the general rule of thumb goes out. We're long on when we stop clocks. Tweet, right? And we're going to change our cadence when we go in it. We'll get in there in a second, right? So we're long, tweet, right? We got a hand in the air. Now we have a dead ball. So this is stop, right? We're going to stop the clock on this one. Then we're going to point the direction, right, of which way we're going. And then when we're ready, we're stopped. So this is for the timekeeper. Believe it or not, more than anybody else. They will watch you. We pride ourselves. I will say the other side of the sport, very bad on hand signals. And men's lacrosse and boys lacrosse, we try to be really good because all of these things matter, right? So try it again for me. Ball's out of bounds. What do we got?
Tweet.
Tweet, right? Generally to that same point too, whatever your whistle is, I'm right-handed. I like my whistle in my left. We see some people opposite. Go with your off whistle hand should go up. Shouldn't be, then your whistle's up here and then I go, what do I got nothing, right? Simple as that. I've seen that, especially guys first game, they get super nervous and you're like, oh God, and then my whistle again is up in the air, right? And you go, make it clean, right? Right? Make it clean if you can.
And here's a quick tip. So you got a whole bunch of players going from the ball. One of them knocks it out of bounds. You put your hand up, you blow a whistle, and you're like, okay, which way is red going? Just take a quick peek at where the goalies are, and you will reorient yourself to know which direction to point.
Right. If it's a scenario, that should probably be changed at inbounds, I think, as well, right? But anything unusual is you want to change, so just highlight that. If it's unusual, right, something funky, like if it was a penalty, that's not a normal occurrence, believe it or not. There's a penalty, as John said, 5 guys are running out of bounds, right? Whatever it may be. You can do tons of it. My 3-year-old just heard, so now she's all excited, right? Tweet, 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 tweet. Change your cadence, right? People will hear your cadences. When it goes out, tweet, right? When it comes back in, we do a super long blast on that. We're going to do that one next. If it's weird, tweet, 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 tweet. Also, the best advice always too, and newer guys just hate communicating because you have a million things in your brain. If I need John's attention, give him something weird. That's different in our brains, right? We're going to hear it. We're going to turn to it. John will look at me. John, this is what I got, right? Or I might do that and then yell, John, John, John. Sometimes you can't hear. As Al said, we're 50-60 yards away. Weird cadence whistles will get our attention, if that makes sense. Sound good on that one? I do the same thing on officials timeouts sometimes, right? Something different. An injury or things like that, right? Things that are different get the attention of everybody in a good way. Again,
Like
you
the
want to
ball.
explain your call.
Like the ball goes in the net and you've got a crease violation and you really want to sell the call because it's no goal. That's a good time to use that whistle.
Tweet, 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 tweet. Big signals, sell your call. Even in JV games, right? We always say rise to the moment of the call, right? If it is a no-goal call, it is 10 seconds left, right? If you watch the Colgate game with 4 seconds, right? You shouldn't be coming in and tweet, we had a goal. No. Tweet, big, big, big signals, right? If you have a crease call, you're going to turn something over. This also, even if your brain is like, oh, I'm like 90% sure I made the right call, right? Make it big, sell it, right? If I'm going, no, we have a crease, we're going that way. My brain might be like 99% sure we had a crease, right? Everybody in the field knows I had a crease, right? Even if my own brain is like, you sure about that? John's going to about to yell at me on this call, right? But those things, confidence really displays as we go forward. Our last quick exercise is starting the clock. For those of you sitting, don't smash the wall behind you. So I will do a circle, right? Where we go real big and we come out, right? So we're up here to, again, have the clock stop, and then we go 1.5 times all the way around. The really good rule of thumb, right? We want a short blast when we were that out of bounds. And I think I had a reverse on the last slide. That's shorter, like we're out of bounds. When we're going inbounds, blow your whistle for the extent that your arm is moving. Longer, 1.5, 2 seconds, right? Short, we stop, we wind the clock to start. So give me the same thing, balls out of bounds.
Tweet.
We got a tweet in there, that's good. We got an arm up. All right, players ready to go, and then we're gonna point this direction. All right, we're going this way. And now we're back in bounds. So we're back up, and then give me a tweet. Cool. We'll practice that more. I know it's weird on Zoom, but I get you. It's more fun when we're in person. Then we can make fun of you for how bad you are. It's okay. We're bad too. John and I are terrible. That's why we're not allowed to ref with one another. We have team timeouts as well. 2 per half per team. They can use it. Keep it simple. We're essentially looking for.
Oh, go back one.
Oh, go ahead.
Notice the scorecard with the interesting shape on it. That is a good scorecard to use. It helps you with the stick checks. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, that shape is intentional.
2 per, our signal, same thing. Let's just do a quick timeout. We got a timeout, we wave.
3 chucks.
I can't be the only person on Zoom waving like an idiot. Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks for some camaraderie there. Same thing, as I said, if this is generally your unusual scenario, right? If it's a normal timeout, right, they're standing with the ball, it's a dead ball, something, it might be funky because the defense can call, right, in certain scenarios. If it's a really big play, same thing. It's always that pole running down the field, gets jammed, decides to turn at the 45-yard line. Coach is screaming at him, Chip, I'm looking at you as a long pole for some reason, right? You make that, you're running down the field, you made an awesome play, and then you pull up and now you got 4 people on you, right? And coach is trying to bail you out as much as they can. The ball squirts out all of a sudden, and we have a timeout. Again, we need possession for timeout. There's some other scenarios, right? Coming big. Tweet, 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 tweet. Had the ball, timeout. We're going timeout blue, right? Some like pointing to, I like pointing both fingers regardless to the bench that called a timeout, right? So again, similar, you see it within football, right? Big timeout, timeout, timeout. We point. Both of our hands, we just point. I don't care if it's 2 fingers. I'll generally do like the Australian rules football, and I'll just kind of point 2 hands, going to the bench, things like that. That cicada whistle is a good one to have in your brain to tweet, 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 tweet. I think our last, same thing, official timeout, same thing. Only difference is the last one we're going to try. We just touch our shoulders. This is us. So if you see that big signal, and then we just say us, I'll also go like this. So it's me, right? So John knows from across the field, this is my time. right? As versus if I have this, and think again, we have loud stadiums. I like using Sheehan as my example. They actually get really good crowds. It's loud sometimes. If you're on the far side, you can't hear everything your partner's saying if it's a 2-man, right? So the difference of, and then I put my arms down, John has no idea, and the ball might be next to him, right? 50 yards away, believe it or not, or even 80 yards away because there was a fast break. John's got no idea. But if I'm big, I'm loud, I go like this, I even hop, I'll continue running up. I might point, he knows it's a team timeout. If it's this and I'm pointing, John can know from 50 yards away, I have my time, right? I'm big, big, big with my signals at all times. Same thing, injuries, we already went over that. Did you have some, Sean? You're good?
No, sorry, I had equipment.
No, you're good. No, I just saw a random highlight go. So just running through these. I know we're right at 8:30, and I promise 8:15. I'm sorry. Emergency rule, just one to know. Again, it's 12 goal differential. It does not change as soon as it hits a 12 goal differential. Then second half, it is running clock forever, even if that team comes back and is winning the game. We're just at running clock forever now for the entire second half. Continues going. Only thing that changes that, injury timeouts, officials timeouts, team timeouts will stop the clock. Penalty time just continues as is, even with running clock. You get discount slashes and cross checks and everything like that. It's a good time to be a defenseman. Some of you smirked. That's cool. The last one too, I feel like we don't cover this any other time. The best place, as John said, this is on your scorecard. So you can't mess up overtime. You're not allowed. It's written on your scorecard. It's literally on the bottom. It's
And the
there, all the
overtime
overtime rules.
overtime periods are the same length for varsity as they are for sub-varsity. It's always 4-minute periods. So you don't have to think, oh, it's a shorter time period because it's sub-varsity. It isn't, it's 4.
We play overtime and everything. The only time we don't play overtime is if we're under 10 years old. That's it. We play overtime for everything else. Even the younger ones, we will generally talk to the coaches sometimes. We don't do Braveheart if it's a sanctioned game. That's only a summer thing, so do not allow a Braveheart. I've led them in summer games and then I magically walk away so I can still watch it, but it's not a thing. A Braveheart is a one-on-one. It is highly dangerous because they're trying to kill each other. We don't do that, right? Within high school or youth games, within that, we can't. They're super fun. I've been a part of them, but that's a summer thing. So we do overtime, right? We call captains. We have a whole thing. We do a coin toss again. They can choose goal, alternate possession, which is when we mess up. It's similar to the basketball arrow, but used extremely seldomly within lacrosse. A good season is using AP 10, 15 times, and I'm not joking. Again, we go through that. They get one timeout. We want a winner unless conditions don't allow us to. Like I said, if it's 11 o'clock at night, the high schools are probably going home. And then the teams can decide that the next day through their administration in the league and things like that.
Alternate possession stays the same as it was at the end of regulation.
Correct.
So if you had changes in alternate possession, whatever it was at the end of regulation, that carries over.
This is in the rules, so just go over super quick. Same thing, lightning. We just went over. There's a whole lightning index. If you deem, again, it's the home team who gets the decision on the field. Once the game then starts, it's the official's decision on the field condition. So again, we're super fortunate. We don't really have these conditions. Again, I make fun of Northwest Indiana, where we played in this in every game, no matter what, where it was literally, 20 inches of rain and mud and you'd play. Not necessarily safe, but we did it because that's what we had. If things are really wonky, you should be in contact with the site administrator. Your referee should be taking charge as well, your veteran person. And again, talking to the coaches. It's not bad to talk to coaches to get ideas on stuff of where we're at, and make a decision that's in the best interest of everybody who's on that field. With that, I'll end right here. We'll have a couple, you make the calls and stuff like that later on. We'll have some YouTubes. I think next week we got a little bit of carb time to do those too, but for the sake of tonight, John and I'll stay on as well to the last person, but if we have any larger group questions, feel free now. Like I said, this was the densest, the quickest we'll go through a ton of stuff. This is all of, I think, let me just go through our recap. It's all about safety and common sense. Don't overly embroil yourself on these nuances. Get familiar with them. If you are a player of the game or a former player or coach, these are going to come a lot easier. You spend more time now on these, because the more you know of these, the better you're going to get. If you're one of our other people, if it's baseball, basketball, football, soccer, whatever, and you're like, I still don't understand why people can throw balls in nets, stick to the big stuff, right? And I mean that in a good way of don't get overly worried about this little stuff. You have a veteran person working with you. John and I go back and forth on this stuff all the time. The rule book is horribly confusing at certain points because there's contradictions on one section to another sometimes about things. So just, again, think safety and common sense. If it looks weird, we probably don't allow it, is a good way to think about it. As I always say, and I use Dave D. Martino's line as well, get the whales, not the minnows. That was the theme of this year. I didn't come up with the theme of that was the theme of last year. Get the big stuff, right? Or get the felonies, not the misdemeanors, is a different way of saying it. But get the big stuff. Don't worry about the small stuff, especially at entry-level games. We want the game to go off. We want everybody to go home, and we mean that. And the other thing you're going to get, this is why I put this in there, should be the end of the week. We're going to assign mentors. It might be next week, but you're going to be paired up with a veteran official who's asked to bring somebody on as a new person and help them out. We try to do it a little bit based on region or who you are. So if you're an older person on this call, we try to hook you up with a little bit older. If you're younger, sometimes location. We also try to pick if you have fellow people within the same sports, it gives you another person to have a little connection with, if that makes sense. And then they're to help you. So it's one of the other programs we help doing. You'll probably get an email from Joe Sikora. I'll probably send it as well. But just to give you an idea for that, tomorrow I'll send that recap with all that different stuff as well for tonight's meeting, the recording, and everything for next week. Questions on anything? I know that was me talking for like an hour and a half. I promise we'll get more of you
I just
guys.
have one equipment question. I
Go ahead.
refed a long time ago. If we used to have to check the NOCTI on the helmets, is that just part of the coaches certifying that the
Yeah, so we'll go through the equipment check on the players as well. It is no longer that we don't check the NOXI symbol. That was super long ago, like 10 plus ago. And then there was a thing, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago when Cascade had that big recall, which was just a marketing ploy. They put little temporary stickers. So we were chasing people around for temporary stickers that got wet in the rain and fell off. Wild time to be alive. But yeah, so we generally will ask in the certification, we're asking them, and when we ask the coach, and again, we'll go through that, when we ask the coach, are all of your players properly equipped by rule, is the exact phrase we use. They are saying that they have read all 109 pages of the rule book and their players are following all 109 pages as well. That excuses us from all liability, if that makes sense, because the coaches are saying, yes, they have NOXI chest pads, NOXI helmets, they've been recertified or sent out or made, like, all of that is in there. And we're just asking that in a simple phrase. Coach, to the best of your knowledge, all of your players are properly equipped at this time when we start this game and will be properly equipped. Something of that phrase. I say it longer because I say it a million times, but coach, all your players properly equipped. That's what you get 99% of the time. That gets us out of everything, to your question. Anything else? Big stuff? Cool. Go ahead and get out of here. Well, John and I will stay on as well if you got smaller stuff. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week. All right.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Rob. John.
Oh, you got one too, John. Look at that.
How about it?
We keeping score. I know.
Rob, you have me in there as no lacks experience on your little sheet.
I don't know. I probably wrote them super quick. Did I have yours right?
Yeah, down. I think you have me football, no lack. I don't know, various
Maybe.
sports, no lacks.
No.
One down. There you go. There you go.
Did you have lax in there? I don't know. I wrote these
No, I
quick.
still play in the summer leagues and the yeah.
These are my quick offhand notes, just so I have a general, like the same thing of like, I remember like, you know, Sean has done baseball, so that helps me sometimes then try to remember. And the same, I try to relate it to this. I also try to relate it to the sports that you guys do too. So I try to give a little bit more. Baseball, nothing in lacrosse works with umpiring.
I used to.
Baseball.
I used to.
Did you want to
do a
stop
lot
the
of
recording?
Yes.
I used to do a lot of the scrimmages for my brother when he was coaching the college.